Today's topic is guns, and today's guest is John Armstrong, comedian extraordinaire. Welcome to the show, John. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
He's doing finger guns right now.
Pew, pew.
All right, so the format of this show is we are going to take turns explaining our position on guns. The guest goes first, so when I'm done with my little spiel here, you will outline your position on guns. And during this time, we're allowed to ask each other clarifying questions. So I can say, like, what do you mean by that? But I can't come at you and say, well, this refutes that point. It's basically we need to lay out exactly what each of us thinks about guns. So you'll go first, I'll go second, and then after that's done, we'll get into the discussion. And the 3 rules for the show are no assuming motive or intent, no seriously insulting each other, and we end the episode by saying, I still like you. Do you agree to these rules?
I do agree to these rules.
All right. So go ahead and outline your position on guns.
All right. So, first of all, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for
It's
coming
gonna be awesome.
on. You actually, real quick before we get into all of this, when did you start doing comedy?
I just hit my 3-year anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so we started, I don't do it anymore, but we started about
roughly
the same time.
Yeah, because funny stuff.
Yeah, and you were always one of my favorite dudes to see do comedy.
Yeah. I would always see you there, and I'm like, hey, what you got? What we doing?
Yeah. I think that I'm not going to name any names, but when you see people, even brand new people, you can usually tell right off the bat whether this person has what it takes to be a comedian.
Yeah, you can kind of hear certain things, and you're like, oh, that person's going with something, and yeah.
But yeah, I was always a huge fan of yours, so I'm super excited to have this. And actually, this episode kind of came about because it was a few months ago now. Another comedian, I think it was on Tommy Eccles' post about guns.
I remember that. Was that Facebook post that we were going back and forth with?
Yeah,
that was a friend of mine. I'm not going to mention him on this just because I don't want to talk and not have him have a chance to whatever.
Yeah.
But that was a friend of mine. He some Facebook posts, like he'll put up stuff and I'll chime in, and like one of the problems with Facebook is like it's when you're in your car, it's road rage. There's very easy to go into certain spheres and lanes when you can't see a person.
Road rage is such an amazing way to put it. I'd never thought of it like that. That's the perfect way to put it.
You're not looking at a person.
Yeah.
That joke that Louis C.K. had about if you're in an elevator, like you wouldn't say the shit that you say behind the wheel. Like you're a piece of shit. You wouldn't lean to somebody like 6 inches away in an elevator and say, you piece of shit.
Right.
But you say it to an old lady when you're in a car.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when you're on Facebook. It's the empathy goes away, and it does seem like the words do cut. Like if I hear something I don't agree with, I'm like, man, then I really want to go in. But then I learn, like, John, like there's nothing comes of this.
Yeah.
And then you don't know the other person's intent. Sometimes with a lot of this internet shit, it's people who love the agitation. They love the fact that you're getting riled up.
Yeah.
So while you think you're leveling them with some great point, they're just cracking up on the other end. Like, this dude is losing his mind.
And I'm so guilty of getting, like, I don't really get mad a lot in my life, but when I'm on Facebook, if I'm engaging in some kind of political discussion, I will get fucking furious.
Yes.
Like, I will be sitting there typing on my phone like, this motherfucker.
Yes.
And on the other end, they're probably just laughing at me getting all riled up. And Facebook is not a good avenue for any kind of discussion, that kind of discussion, I should say. And so I saw you posted on that. And we disagree about guns, obviously. And I wanted to actually have the conversation rather than it get... Even if you and I can behave on Facebook, there's the whole peanut gallery that'll chime in with their horse shit. So that's kind of the background of
how this... unfriending people.
Yeah.
Like, well, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Okay, so now we will get down to, what is your position on guns?
Okay, so my position on guns is... It's the... I was just about to say, it's the Second Amendment, right? Get this guy off the shit. He doesn't even know the goddamn amendment. He's going to argue a point. I get guns. I understand guns. I grew up in East Side, shitty inner city part of Cleveland, so I I've had a lot of encounters with guns from a very young age. I think that kind of gave me my viewpoint. And I'm not against guns. I'm not anti-guns. I just think the way we approach guns in this country is very like callous. You know, I think I think a lot of things are unnecessary. I don't think that we should even be going through some of the problems that we have. And then when you try to get laws and certain regulations around them, I think there's a lot of pushback. I think there's different levels of the pushback. I think some of it is just like certain lobbies, like the NRA just wants to have their. I don't think they want to be dealt with in any way. They don't want to be regulated in any way. So it's just an automatic pushback. And then I think there are certain people who, like when you get into the city versus rural, I don't think certain people realize that when you live in the middle of nowhere, you kind of need a gun because either, like, I never thought of shit like if you live in Colorado or Utah about shit like mountain lions or coyotes stealing shit or like that's the thing, you know. But then again, being in the inner city, like sometimes you need a gun because I have friends who used to always carry guns on them because I've almost been killed. One of my good friends was murdered, and like after you go through that, like you literally. I've joked around with my girlfriend. Like I think every black person and every person who's grown up in the inner city has PTSD. Like to this day, I have weird shit like people sneak up on me or stuff like that. So I'm not necessarily anti-gun, but I think we need a lot more rules around how we handle guns, how we sell guns and who can get guns and how many guns and what type of guns. But I know I do understand like the slippery slope of because I don't think a ban is the answer. But I also don't think what people on my side or even more hardcore than me are calling for a ban, but I think automatically a lot of people, as soon as there's a shooting, then they're like, we need gun laws, and then then the pushback is like, no, well, we don't need anything, just this is a people problem, not a gun problem. Mm-hmm. So, and then the argument starts to... So I would say I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not. So
let me ask you this: Where you said that you do think that there should be some regulations and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
what kind of stuff would you?
More than what we have. I'm going to first say I don't have all the answers.
Oh, dude, neither do I. I'm highly opinionated, but I don't know everything.
Yeah,
so.
Dude, so I don't exactly know. It's kind of. I had this joke, and actually I heard Chris Rock say kind of a similar joke. You know how like you come up with a joke, and you're like, oh, and then somebody kind of articulates it the same or better. And it was in a sense to where I think like owning a gun should be kind of like, to me, it's like flying a plane. Like in theory, anybody can do it, and there's nothing stopping anyone from doing it. But I don't think everyone should do it. And I wouldn't trust a lot of people with it just because what motivates one person might not motivate another. And even if there's no malice behind it, like I know plenty of nice people who I would not get on that plane with if they were flying to Vegas.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
I mean?
Absolutely.
So it becomes a thing like that. And I also think another I think way to get around some of the violence part of it. I heard a person say, as much as I hate this institution, I think this would kind of work if they had to be insured. I don't like insurance, but that does feel like a way to get around some of it. You know what I mean? Some of the liabilities.
So, like, if you own a gun, you have to have, like, gun owner's insurance? Like a homeowner's insurance policy, or
in a sense to where you're liable if for something that goes wrong with that, and that would make it a little more tighter. The problem with that though is it would be a little bureaucratic, you know what I mean? Because like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of insurance. Dude. I have car insurance and like fuck that shit. So, but it was something that puts some type of responsibility on the gun owner, which I'm not saying gun owners don't have responsibility. I'm not saying that, but
I am the very pro-gun guy in this argument, and I'll be the first to say that there's a lot of really fucking irresponsible gun owners.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I hope I'm not like rambling at this.
Well,
point.
let me see if I can. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let me know if this is an accurate kind of summation of what you're saying.
Yeah.
You are not a ban all guns guy. You don't want like complete gun confiscation,
Right.
but you do think that the way that our system is now needs to be changed, and we need to have something.
Right.
You're not entirely sure what that looks like,
Right.
but okay.
And another thing too is well-regulated militia. But if you are in of that, like people who are in militias, it should be that a well-regulated militia. You know what I mean? Because I get the whole government is tyranny and they can do something, but the problem is a lot of these people who are stockpiling guns like that. These are the people who make me nervous. Like these people out in the middle of nowhere, and they're stockpiling guns. Like they say they're doing this for the government, but they tend to side with authoritative parts of the government.
You know what? I completely agree with that.
You know what I mean?
That's a very interesting point. And actually, we'll put a pin in that because I do want to come back to that in the discussion portion. So yes, we will talk about that. Is there anything else that you would like to say about your position?
As far as my position, this is a big thing, and I hope I don't like ruffle any feathers here. But I'm black. Me being
Everybody, John Armstrong is black.
me being black, like a lot of so much stuff in this country. There I think there are racial undertones, either sometimes conscious, sometimes subconscious, but there's a racial undertone to a lot of this, in a sense to where, and you see that, like, they always bring up Chicago. Like in Chicago, the gun laws are very strict, but you go into the state of Illinois and the gun laws are more lax. Like basically, they like to come down on people if you're in the inner city, if you have guns, and it's harder to own a gun. You go through a lot of shit, which I understand. There's a lot of...
But I mean, going back to Chris Rock again, he had that joke of don't ever go to a club that doesn't allow guns. Yeah. Because you're safe in there, but what about everybody outside with a gun? Yeah. That's kind of what Chicago is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They know you ain't got one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very true. But part of the racial aspect, too, I was going to say, was a lot of these right-wing militia groups that build up these stockpiles, they're not the most multicultural thing.
They're not the most progressive, diverse crowd.
And the times that black people have tried to do that, Black Panthers specifically, so many gun laws got changed in California because of the Black Panthers.
You're 100% right. Yeah,
they were very conscious of the law. Like Huey P. Newton, one of the co-founders of the Black Panthers. This wasn't like a street gang. Like they came out of Berkeley. These were like college kids.
Yeah.
So they were very cognizant of the law. And so they're like, as long as you display your gun, as long as it's at a certain angle, they knew where to keep the ammunition. They were very cognizant of that. But back then, Ronald Reagan, he was the governor of California, and he changed a lot of rules so that these certain people couldn't basically protect themselves, because they got, whether you like them or not, I don't want to go down a Black Panther thing, but these are people
it's a valid thing to bring
who
up.
are Americans who felt like the police were abusing their power, so they had their right as American citizens to protect themselves. And when they went the 100% legal way of doing that, the government found a way around that and took their guns. So I can it just, some of it comes across as hypocrisy on a racial level, to where I understand what some of these right-wing people are saying with the government taking your guns, but it's happened to segments of our community, and I don't hear that same energy when it comes to defending people like that. Or like the Castile guy who got shot in Minnesota by the cop, and he had a CCW, and he told them that, and then you got this trigger-happy cop who just unloads on this person, and the NRA was silent about that. So there doesn't seem to be equal time with a lot of this stuff. Certain people, we understand why you need a gun, and you're covered, and you're American patriots, and then with other people, it's like, let's get that gun out of Tyrone's hands.
That's another really, really, we're going to get more into that, because that is a huge part of the discussion that I really don't think gets talked about a lot.
Oh yeah,
in the gun discussion.
Yeah. So that's pretty much my part. I probably got other stuff, but my brain's so scatterbrained that I'll
get
try
into
to
it along the
bounce
way.
off of whatever you got. But
Yeah.
give me
Okay,
your.
so my
give me your
position
half.
on guns. I'm kind of a very, I don't know, a Second Amendment absolutist might be a way to describe it. I don't believe in. And this is going to be a running theme on this show. Is I'm kind of a lunatic with my anti-government libertarianism.
I'm kind of crazy.
I take it way further than most people. I don't believe in any regulations on guns. I don't believe in any gun control laws or anything like that. I think that anybody that wants to be armed should be able to be armed. On a personal level, I think that I despise people that are gun owners that are not responsible, that don't do their research in how to be a responsible gun owner.
Yeah.
I despise those people. They make people like me look bad. But I don't think that there should be laws in place keeping them from being armed.
Right.
I also, as far as guns go, I've been thinking over the past couple of days of a good way to say this, and I haven't really come up with it because it's going to sound really callous and kind of stupid.
Is it the fuck the dead kids argument?
No.
Fuck your dead kids.
No, not at all. I have all the sympathy in the world for anybody that dies, especially school children that die. My thing is, statistically speaking, gun violence really is not a problem. And the reason that I'm hesitant about saying that and trying to find a better way to say that is gun violence is if one person got shot in all the world, it's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm saying I think that it is way overblown by the media and by people that do have a political interest in gun control, or there are some people that are for gun confiscation. I think that they have an agenda, and also fear sells. And I think that there has been a lot of fear-mongering around the gun thing. And that's actually I have a paper in front of me that I prepared because I wanted actual statistics. So just to kind of clarify that position, in that I don't think that gun violence is a serious – it's not an epidemic. So the statistics that I have are from 2017, which were the most recent stats that were available. There were 39,773 gun deaths. And the CDC separates those statistics into a bunch of different categories, including like suicide, homicide, unintentional accidents, whatever.
Right.
But I'm just going to go with the total number. There were 2.7 million total deaths, people dying from anything in that year. So if you look at those total gun deaths, that doesn't even crack the top 10 of most common ways of dying in America.
Yeah. Well, isn't one of the most common ways to die from guns is suicide, right? Ain't that number one?
It is the number one. And in fact, that
ain't suicide like what is that, like 3-4 top ways to die for maybe our age demographic?
I think so. That's an odd number though, because people in our age bracket don't have a lot of things that kill us. We're not really at risk for strokes and cancer.
I just turned 40, Dan.
You're still not there.
I'm knocking on heaven's door.
But yeah, so it really is. Gun deaths represent only 1.4% of all deaths annually. Okay. So my thing is, yes, it's a problem when anybody dies from a gun. I don't think that statistically speaking, it is the huge issue that we make it out to be.
Right.
So basically, to sum up, I don't believe in gun laws or restrictions or regulations, and I don't.
Do you think they should be looser? The laws that we have should be looser.
100%, yes. Wow. Yeah. So that's my position, and now because I can see you're interested in talking about that, so let's get into the discussion.
Okay, so my thing is, I heard this thing. You know how like you hear all these little quick quips or like a meme where you're like, man, I'm gonna save that picture and use this one. It was something I saw that was actually really cool, and it kind of articulated part of my side of the argument. They were talking about cars, and I know people always put the cars in this, and they're like, well, cars kill so many people. I'm not doing that because cars to me, are made to drive, and if you incidentally die in it, that's not the intention. It's like slipping. Like slipping in your bathtub.
Yes, that is a statistic that a lot of pro-gun people bring up. I think that argument is stupid. I don't.
To me, that's like slipping in your bathtub. They didn't make a gun is made to kill.
Yes, 100%.
Like tubs are made to wash up. If you die in it, that's an oops.
Yes, and a lot of people on the pro-gun side love to try to dance around the guns are made to kill thing and try to say, no, guns are made to kill. Yeah. I'm a pro-gun guy, and guns are absolutely made to kill.
They're very efficient ways to kill.
Yes.
Yeah, my thing is, though, with the car thing is, somebody brought up the fact that, like, certain sports cars, the word street legal, you can't even have it on the street because it's a powerful car. You have to know a little more of what you're doing to be able to control this car. Other people are at risk when you're behind the wheel. Not that you're intentionally trying to do anything, but you're yielding so much power that we have to have a few checks and balances with this machine that you have, because this can easily go from 0 to 60 really quick.
Yeah.
Pun intended. So
that's a valid argument, and I think my position is, and this kind of dictates my position on just about everything when it comes to laws, is when you think about what a law is basically saying, we are going to throw you in a cage if you do this.
Yeah.
So when
or fine the shit out of you.
Okay, yeah, but if you don't pay the fine, what happens? It eventually leads to a jail cell.
Yeah.
So when I think about what should and shouldn't be legal, I always frame it as, if a private citizen locked someone in their basement for doing this, would that be okay? So if someone raped their daughter and they put that rapist in their basement and locked them there, I would have no problem with that.
Right.
So that kind of dictates how I look at laws and regulations and stuff. To me, the simple act of owning a gun and not doing anything with that gun, there's no victim there. Once you start doing things with that gun, that's when shooting someone for absolutely no reason, 100% should be illegal. If you have a sports car and you if you lose control and plow it into something, yes, you should be punished.
Right.
But the simple fact of owning it, there's no victim there. So I don't feel comfortable saying you have something in your possession that you're not doing anything with, and I'm going to lock you in a cage for it.
I understand. Here's something, too. Here's something else I heard, and I hope this doesn't, whatever people, because I heard this.
Don't worry about pissing people off.
Okay.
I piss people off all the time. So
I heard this on a documentary. It was with Michael Moore, known lefty, but it was a Bowling for Columbine thing, and he brought up a good point. He said, well, technically it says the right to bear arms. It doesn't say anything about guns. So what about having bombs or anything else? Where does it stop? And this is legitimately part of me. This part is my position, but part of it, this is a legitimate question.
Absolutely.
So I'm not being like, well, where does it stop, Dan?
No.
I'm literally like, where does because what is it, the 50 caliber or whatever guns that allegedly you can shoot a plane down with or something like that?
I don't know. I know 50 caliber guns are very.
I've seen a lot of movies, so there's going to be ignorance about guns on my side. But
with certain guns, you could blow a hole in the side of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you get into those, and then you get into rocket launchers, and you get into grenades, and you get into bombs, and then even ultimately a nuclear bomb, when does it stop that an individual should not be able to own this?
First, let me say, I do not like when someone asks a question like you're asking right now, and someone says, well, that's just ridiculous. I'm not even going to entertain that. That's stupid. I think that these are the kinds of questions that we should be asking each other.
Yeah, these are the questions that get left on the side.
Exactly.
And it becomes, we're either taking all your guns or I'm fucking coming in like Rambo.
Yes, yeah. And this is, you remember at the top of this show when I said that I'm a real lunatic libertarian?
Yeah.
I'm a real fucking lunatic with it. I don't believe, up to and including nuclear weapons. And I know that sounds really fucking crazy, but just hold on. Hold on.
No,
let me clarify. Let me clarify. Because my view of the government is just people. It's just a group of people that have power.
Yeah, we the people. Yeah.
So, in my opinion, there's no difference
in them owning it versus us owning it.
Yes. And I also don't think, first of all, I don't think that even if nuclear weapons were completely legal, I don't think it would be very easy to obtain one. I think it would be absurdly expensive. And I think that, yes, it could lead to some shit. And I understand, and I fully admit that
it would lead to some shit.
I fully understand. This is the loonier fringes of my position. And I also want to say, nuclear bombs is not the hill that I would die on. like if we want to talk about
not what the nuclear bombs thing is. You are gonna die on this hill, and I'm gonna make a crater because I'm nuclear. I'm sorry,
but the fact of the matter is, as it is right now, private citizens are not allowed to own nuclear weapons. Anybody that wanted to get their hands on a nuclear weapon, if they had the resources to do it, those laws are not going to stop them anyway. So my thing is, I don't think that would be a problem.
Okay, well let's scale it back. Let's not say nuclear, but let's go. I guess that's if we're topping off of that. Then you think you bear arms, you should be able to have anything.
Yes. Yeah.
Now what about the amount of how much should I be? Once again, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. I don't think that just owning something and not the simple act of owning it and not doing anything with it, I don't think it's okay to put someone in a cage for it.
Dude, you're putting. I get what you're saying, like to put somebody in a cage thing, but to me that's very like binary in a sense to where you either in the cage or out of the cage. Because then you get into like taxes, like, well, should you be in the cage because you didn't like write on this certain piece? Well, you're a libertarian.
I'm a libertarian. I'm real loony with it.
I just realized what I was saying on that analogy. Backing away from the tax analogy.
Yeah, I am very.
For the record, I hate taxes too. So.
I'm very loony, but I am very consistent in my thinking. And my thing is, I really do not trust the government at all.
Yeah,
I don't. And
I've noticed that with people who are very pro guns, there's a very I don't trust the government. Now, here's the thing: I don't trust the government either. But I've noticed when you get into like different ideologies, like I'm a lefty.
Yeah.
You could say I'm a liberal. I don't like the way like people do certain people who really are like I'm really conservative or I'm really like I don't like being put in the cage
rigid
like that.
Ideologies.
You know what I mean? Because they're.
Yeah.
But once you get into that, like you were saying before, it becomes very dogmatic and like you're just subscribing to stuff because that's what's on our side.
Yeah.
And that's what we believe. So there's certain stuff that I don't necessarily believe. But the liberal part of me is, like I was saying before, we the people. So I don't necessarily hate the government because I think we are the government. But trust me, dude, if we do another podcast, I am conspiracy theorist number one.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because like, what I was about to say is I think that
get me started on 9/11. So like, so I am very in that sense of don't trust.
I really think that this is something where like even uber right-wing and uber left-wing people, there is a common ground that is completely missed. And I really think it's because, this is the conspiracy theory sounding part of it, I really think it's because they don't want us to come together in that.
Well, divide and conquer is always
I distrust the government, you distrust the government. And even, I'm a more sensible person than some like in the woods right-wing militia guy. But we both distrust the government.
But in different ways.
And that's the problem. I think that we need to come together and I think believe each other's ways that we distrust. Because as a black man, this goes back to Black Lives Matter. My big thing with Black Lives Matter was stop limiting it to black. Cops are killing, and I understand. I'm saying come together with me. Fuck the police. Yes, 100%. Don't exclude me from your fuck the police.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, and I don't want to go too much off on a tangent, but one of the things with the Black Lives Matter, I heard somebody say this on the radio, and it's really like kind of exemplifies that argument when you get into All Lives Matter. And the person said, it's basically like this.
I do want to be real clear real quick and interject. I was not making the All Lives Matter point. That's not the point I was making. But yes,
I get what you're saying. Yeah. Like we can all like agree that authoritarian cops are douchebags, and why limit yourself to this one group when we could all collectively have a big fuck the police rally kind of deal. My deal with that is like I said, I heard this person say this. It was about cancer, And that's like going to a breast cancer rally and telling people with breast cancer all cancers matter. You know what I mean? And here's the thing: the reason you have breast cancer awareness is because breast cancer primarily affected a segment of society that didn't have power, which is women, and it went ignored, it went underfunded for a long time, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, because it didn't affect certain people in power, it got kind of ignored. So it wasn't until a lot of these women got together that they started raising money, raising awareness, and were able to fight this particular strain of cancer so that you can have better mortality results. So that's where I am with the
I think that's a valid point. I think it's a valid comparison.
Yeah, because like when you're on the outside looking in, it just looks like, why are these people trying to like click up and pal up? And they're like, look, dude, like we kind of were ignored here in the fringes for a while, and the only way we've got some traction is by banding together and saying, hey, man, we're over here experiencing something that a lot of other people aren't experiencing. And
but this is exactly what ties back to my opinion on guns, and you touched on this earlier about how a lot of the militia types and stuff kind of disregard the Black Panther stuff and the black experience with it. My thing is, and I'm about to say some real radical shit that maybe I should not put on record, but I'm going to fucking do it anyway.
Dude, super libertarian you all.
As a black person, if a cop is trying to kill you, I think that you should kill that cop.
Oh, yeah.
That's 100% self-defense.
Yeah.
I don't think that the cop has the authority to shoot you unless it is 100% obvious that his life is in danger or somebody else's life is in danger.
Well, now that's the legal distinction that people are trying to make, because like we were saying with the Castile thing with the guy who had the CCW, and then the guy goes and unloads on him, and he said, well, he felt fear for his life. And then there's the I don't consider it gray, but that's what they say is the gray area where how can you tell this person when they're in this scenario that they should or should have.
But I don't agree with that standard, the fear for your life standard.
Yeah.
That leaves it up to personal feeling. I think it needs to be an objective, a reasonable person can look at this situation from the outside and say there was a threat there.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases that's not. And essentially what this is coming down to for me is one of the reasons, not the only reason, that I am anti-gun control or anti-regulations or restrictions is because I think black people should be armed in order to protect themselves from the police.
Yeah. I think that, trust me, dude, that's a utopia. I think once again the way these things break down, and this is something else that I saw on a social media site, but they were talking about. So a lot of these mass shooters that you'll have, a lot of them are young white guys. Mm-hmm. And then when they get the ones who don't kill themselves, when they get caught, this guy, he made a point that all these guys who got caught, the police got them barely scuffled or barely a scratch. Mm-hmm. And then there's all these unarmed black guys who get killed because this guy feared for his life. So it's like, so essentially police do know how to de-escalate something.
100%,
But for some reason, when it's a certain type of person, you look at it like it's the Incredible Hulk and we just need to choke this dude out while putting 50 bullets in him. And then when this other guy...
I would say, and I think this might be an entirely different discussion for an entirely different podcast. But I would say, I think with police, 100% they shoot unarmed black people. Yeah. They shoot unarmed everybody. Yeah. I don't have the numbers and statistics for what the proportions are. Yeah. I'm not even going to argue that it's not disproportionate to the black. I'm not making that argument. I'm saying you're making my point as to why I think that one of the reasons I think people need to be armed.
Yeah, but once again, the problem becomes a lot of times it gets broken down where okay, people can be armed, and it's like, but these people can, these people can. But backing away from that whole aspect of it, I was talking about like a street legal car and how certain cars aren't street legal, so. Somebody walking down the street, and if you have a CCW, and like in certain states, this is an extreme version, but this is what like lefties like me see when you see the guy with the The only gun we know, an AR-15. I don't know what it is, but that's what we call all the big guns, the AR-15.
It's the big scary black rifle.
Yeah. So the guy's walking down the street with an AR-15, and then he's going in like Starbucks in the sandwich shop, and people have done that just to display like this is my right, and I can do that. It's kind of like male breastfeeding. It's like some people are offended, but I can legally do this. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with that per se. It feels like shock value, but what do you do to ensure that this person isn't a psycho and just shoots everybody up? Now, once again, I'm not coming at you like that's why we need to arrest that guy or look at him, but the same way we both kind of approach the government in certain ways of not trusting. I don't trust individuals. I don't trust anybody.
I think that's very valid. I think that's valid.
That's where when I see people with shit like that or like.
So I have a couple of things to say about that. First of all, and this is a good opportunity for me to say, I think that a lot of people that agree with me on this issue are assholes, and they peacock. They peacock with their guns, and that's fucking douchey. Yeah. I hate Ted Nugent. Yeah. I agree a lot on guns with Ted Nugent. I don't ever want Ted Nugent to open his mouth. He's a fucking idiot and an asshole. But as far as your example of someone just carrying around an AR-15, first of all, I would say if he's going into Starbucks or anywhere like that, I also believe that a private business has the right to say you're not allowed to have guns in here. I think that that's different than the government doing it.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
So in your libertarianness, your right to your private establishment trumps this person's right to their Second Amendment?
Well, no. Conflating with the Second Amendment is a bit troublesome because the Second Amendment is, and all of the Constitution, is specifically what the federal government is not allowed to do.
Okay.
So, but in my...
So that's more what the government's not allowed to do, not what you are allowed to do?
Yeah, and I think that there is a huge difference between the government doing something and a private establishment doing something. If I buy a plot of land, I build up a store, and I have a coffee shop, that's my private property. I am a private citizen. I get to make the rules for that private property. Up to and including if I'm letting you come onto my private property, I'm saying you're not allowed to have a gun. If you don't like it, then you're not allowed on my private property. And I think it's perfectly fine for businesses to make those kind of rules. I personally don't. If I owned a business, I don't know if I would make that rule, but I think it's okay for businesses to make that rule.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. A lot of this, for people listening, a lot of this back and forth that we're having is... Like, I believe in gun regulation. I think we need better laws. I'm sick of these shootings, and I just think a lot of this, like you said, is guys peacocking, and some of it is just a vice thing. I smoke and I drink. I think a lot of people won't concede that part of guns is just a vice. They're cool.
Dude,
They're cool.
And you're 100% right. It bothers me that a lot of pro-gun people won't just come out and say shooting is fun.
Yeah,
I'm going to come out and say shooting is fun. If I don't know if you've ever been to a shooting range or anything like that. No. It's fucking fun, dude. It's really fun to have that.
I actually want to go because that's the other thing too. I'm kind of a know-it-all, and I'm not so much anti-gun, but I do want to know how to use one.
Yeah.
And I do want to know how to... And I have, like I said, plenty of my friends, from people I grew up with in the ghetto to people that I met in the suburbs and who stay, like, out in the, like, Portage County, like, out in the middle of nowhere where you could really go shooting and stuff. Mm-hmm. I've heard the same thing on both sides. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. You know what I mean? But I don't know, part of me, too, having intimate experiences with guns in negative ways, and that did put in me, like, I just don't like being around them,
and that's perfectly valid. But
it's not a 100% thing. It's not like, it's not like you brought. I'm not a vampire. It's not like you brought a cross in and I'm like gonna shriek into the corner. It's not that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? But it's just, I have had the experience of, if you have a gun, it's gonna get used. Now, part of that is living in the hood, and everybody I know who had one, eventually you just use it somehow. Like, it gets, for one, because conflict gets escalated in certain areas like that more. And then, and like the statistic you were citing with suicide, dude, man, depressed me does not need a gun, man.
Dude, I'll tell you right now. A few years ago, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I had a shotgun, and I got into a huge depressive funk, like really, really bad depression, to the point that I was able to have like a moment of clarity enough to say I shouldn't have this gun in my house, and I gave it to my friend, and I was like, you need to hold on to this for me. So I get it. That being said, I'm obviously not encouraging suicide or anything, but I also think that suicide is a personal choice. Like,
trust me, I'm pro death in that sense, to where like Hunter S. Thompson, like if you live your life and okay, it's time to I'm very pro that. I was actually talking to somebody about that, not to get morbid, but like we live finite lives, man, and everybody doesn't want to waste away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but at the same time, that's getting back to the other part of the suicide and the depression and the being alone. There's that. But said,
to your point, having a gun makes the decision to suicide much quicker and much more permanent, and I concede that.
But that said, I'm not like I don't believe in laws around that, because I can give a shit less. Like I still don't think that there should be like a law like, well, damn, we had to write up Article 19 so you don't have to kill yourself. So.
Yeah.
So I don't think so some of this, for people who are listening, I'm just kind of saying how I feel, but I don't think there should necessarily be a law behind it. I don't think there should be a law behind you killing yourself.
Yeah.
I'm just citing what tends to happen when there are guns around. Here's another thing that gets brought up that I used to kind of poo-poo at, but it's actually, I'm giving it more thought, because it does make a point. Like people talk about over in the UK, in London, where it's harder to get a gun, but they have all these incidents of stabbing and stuff, and you have to worry about that just as much. I'm like, oh well, fuck that, stabbing's stupid, dude. But I don't. And Chris Rock had that joke, like if 100 people got stabbed, that means that 97 people deserve to die. Because it's just very hard to kill that many people. So I think that's one of the arguments that people like me have against guns. It's just a very efficient way to quickly kill a lot of people. But back to the knife thing, I do think that if we did ban guns, like, you probably would have an increase in knife crime, just because I've come to realize in this last 15, 20 years that the gun thing has been sensationalized. So people want to go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
And people want fame. So I don't think that necessarily banning guns or certain laws will make certain stuff go away, because people want that martyrdom. Mm-hmm. I do think it should maybe be like the streaker at the football game. You know how you never know, because they don't show the streaker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, like, I don't think they should.
Media shouldn't be showing pictures of the shooters. Right. They don't say their names.
Exactly.
Don't fucking print their manifestos.
Exactly.
Treat them like the fucking losers that they are.
Exactly. I think that would take the air out of a lot of that part of it.
I agree.
Because I was thinking about that and trying to just explore the argument, like, wow, would the gun violence significantly go down if we change the laws? I think it would. I don't know to the extent, but I think it would go down. But then, like the counterpoint of the knives, I think humans would find a way to sensationalize violence.
Humans, yeah, humans will always find a way to kill each other, and will always find a way to, if it bleeds, it leads, kind of shit. Yeah. But I will say, and not just with the gun thing, just about every political stance that I have is kind of formed by two separate things. I'll call it the moral argument and the effective argument. And by what I mean by that is, we'll take it to taxation, because it's a simpler example to use. My moral argument against taxation is it's wrong to steal from people.
Yeah.
The effective argument is you have to look at, is society better with taxation or without taxation?
How are we going to build these roads, Dan?
we're not going to get.
Okay.
I have answers for that,
Okay.
but basically, I'm saying so. I have the moral side of theft is wrong, so I don't believe in taxation.
Right.
But then there's also the separate argument of, is a society without taxation better than a society with taxation?
Right.
And those are two separate arguments.
So basically, a way you feel about it, but how practically would it play out if this did?
Yeah, and so to talk about it with guns, I think my moral standpoint on guns is people have a right to protect themselves, and people have a right to not, like I keep saying, be thrown in cages just for owning something. The effective side of the gun argument is a much trickier side because it's almost unquestionable if guns didn't exist, gun deaths would go down. I mean, so it's my argument on guns is split like that.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty unwavering on the moral side of it, meaning people have the right to protect themselves,
right,
etc. The effective side of the argument, that's much harder to nail down. And that's the side of the argument that I like to have discussions with people about.
Right.
Because it's trickier. I mean, if you look at Australia that banned guns, homicides went down. You look at England, knife homicides went up. I don't have the exact numbers, but violent crime statistics and everything, banning guns has an effect on that.
Yeah. Well, the gun deaths that we have in this country are unique to this country in the sense to where what the numbers of it. I know, like you said, it's not as big as people make it out to be.
But you're right. It's way bigger than anyone else.
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
It's kind of, and this is weird getting into ideology, left, right, and what scares people. Certain people, and I don't want to clump everybody on the right, but certain people on the right are very like these terrorists and blah blah blah. But you can bring up that statistic, like the likelihood of you dying in a terrorist attack is so like you'll get bit by a shark in Lake Erie before you die Muhammad's bomb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dying from terrorism is even less likely than dying from guns.
But once again, I have learned in my brain, at least even by myself, to concede that it's just certain things that piss off right and left wing people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guess that's my equivalent of the gun thing is I don't like terrorism at all. And I don't want you to think I'm like palling around with shit like that. But that's my dismissive I'm not worried about.
Yeah.
You know, just like, but other people are worried about terrorism. But some of the people who are worried about terrorism aren't worried about guns. But I'm like, hey, what about all these guns? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think certain things just hit people's ear and just hit. It's kind of like when you get with right, left, when it comes to certain government stuff, and certain right-wing people hate when poor people take money from the government and stuff like that. And then a lot of left-wing people like me hate when rich people take stuff. And it's all stealing.
This is the great thing about libertarianism is I hate
you hate all of it. Yeah. You all have a very convenient fuck all you guys. That's kind of how I am with my atheism. I heard somebody talking about Scientology and how it's crazy and blah blah blah, and I was like, I think it's crazy, but I'm like, I don't think it's any crazier than Jesus or Muhammad. It was like, wait, whoa. I'm like, it's all people.
One mythology is older than the other.
That's it. Yeah, that's kind of my home base with that. Is like
we have video clips of L. Ron Hubbard. We don't have video clips of the guy that came up with any of the other religions. So we can see
there's
firsthand.
A guy on YouTube I saw Jesus. Who had that joke? Bill Burr, this guy had a social security number. He was some dude. Man.
Yeah.
but that's how I am with religion. It's you all are whatever. So to get back to the point, I think there are certain things that just hit people's ear depending on what side of an ideology you're on a little harder.
And I think that has a lot to do with. Okay, I'm going to get off on a little bit of a tangent here, but it ties into what we're saying. One of the things that I hate most about President Trump is his the fake news thing.
Yeah.
Because the media is horseshit, but he says everything the media does is horseshit, even if it's not horseshit.
Yeah.
So he's essentially taken a real thing, which is news has an agenda, news is, whatever, and spun it into this dumb Trumpian horseshit that I can't get behind.
Exactly.
And I think that depending on which news station you watch, it's a different thing, terrorism or guns or whatever, is gonna tick in your head as being the problem.
Right.
Whereas I don't think most things that we see as gigantic problems are actually problems.
Yeah.
What I think is a problem is the fact that we are in endless wars. The fact that Trump just vetoed the resolution to get us out of the genocide in Yemen.
Yeah.
These are actual real problems that we're not really talking about.
I was just talking to somebody about that with the whole Trump thing, and the brilliance of that is because we were talking about conspiracies earlier. That's partly how he got a lot of his base is that the news is fucked up, and once anybody can start, that's how anything starts off. There's a morsel of truth there, and then you can start pulling at that string. And I remember, and not to go super down conspiracy theory alley, but I was telling somebody I really think that like shit like JFK and 9/11 is why you have like a Donald Trump. Because people don't trust the government for whatever reason. Now, people
because they're notorious liars.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
and you don't even have to go to like JFK or 9/11 or anything
well,
like that. There's shit like
those,
the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah. Those were extremes. But but
there's actual proven facts of false flag things that the government has carried out. Like
the Iran,
some conspiracies are provably real.
Yeah, the Iran-Contra thing. And how they were running drugs. And just to fuel this, and that's how all this crack and stuff got into certain neighborhoods, but I think through all that's people have found a way to step into that space of like, these people feel fucked over and they want somebody who's going to be a voice to them, and so that's the I don't want to super get into the Trump thing, but that's the problem, that whenever Trump does go away. If he goes away, whenever he does go, people need to realize the need to address that. Because I'm a liberal. I vote Democratic. I think a lot of people like me on my side are at this point is kind of by default, just because I don't think anybody's side is being 100% heard how they want to. You just know what you don't want to vote for. You know what I mean. But whenever this goes away, we still have to address certain fundamental flaws. Like I like Bernie Sanders. I'm a Bernie Sanders person, and the way they fucked him over, the way the Democratic Party fucked him over, and what they're doing to him now, it's like this is why people voted for Trump, or people went to one of the reasons. I know it's a million reasons, but this is one of the many reasons, and you can't stand on a moral high ground and be like, hey, we're the party of the people, when you're shooting people in the foot because you have your corporate donors that you're trying to appease. You know
the Democratic Party fucked over Bernie hard.
Yeah.
And that is actually, that's one of the other, that ties into one of the many reasons that I'm loath to trust the government with anything, is you have someone like Julian Assange that leaked what the DNC did to Bernie Sanders, and even everyone in the media and everyone outside of a few good journalists are talking about Julian Assange like he's a traitor. Because he brought to light corruption in every aspect of politics.
Well,
same with Edward Snowden and
who's the girl?
Chelsea Manning.
Yeah. Didn't Obama kind of fuck her over?
Yeah. See, that's the really annoying thing about being a libertarian is no matter who's in power, half of the people that are saying, fuck that guy, I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy. But then the other half are saying, don't. And then it switches, and then I agree with those and not those. But it's always whoever's saying, fuck that guy. Obama got us into more wars. The war thing is what I go back to a lot. And actually, for a little bit, I was willing to give Trump the benefit of the doubt because he was paying lip service to ending wars. He had no intention of doing it, and now it seems like he's gearing up for war in Venezuela, maybe.
Dude,
I just don't want to be in fucking wars, killing millions of people across the
Venezuela
country,
thing
or across the world.
is such a like if people haven't seen. Okay, here I'm backing up a little bit. Do you? I mean, we were talking about that conspiracies. Like, do you? I'm kind of, and I don't want to absolve anybody from any responsibility. And I know this is very easy to say, like conspiracy theory shit, but I am pretty resigned to the fact that I really don't. You could Bernie Sanders or you can have I don't know, Mitt Romney, or I don't know, think of any other conservative. I don't think at this point. I think the military is a machine that nobody can stop. Dude.
Yes, 100%.
I think it's its own thing. Like the funding.
Once
that
we
they
started
get,
privatizing the military, and this is, as a libertarian, you would think that I'd be all about private military.
Yeah.
I'm not. There are a few things I don't believe in private military, and I don't believe in private prisons. I think that those should be handled government.
Yeah,
100%.
Oh wow, look at you, dude.
I have very odd beliefs.
Wow, dude. Yeah, look at us coming together, man.
Yeah,
dude, man. Like private prisons, that's pretty much slave labor at this point.
100%.
And on top of that, probably speaking to the libertarian, and you're taxing people and making them pay for it, but then this money is going into this private prison's hands, and people don't realize the amount of industry that's done by private prisons, and you technically are paying them, like, what, 15 cents an hour? Those fucking firefighters who fought those fires for $1, an hour or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And I know, like, there's plenty of people who are out there who say they like doing it, and it's a noble thing, and they shouldn't be getting rich, and blah, blah, blah. I understand that, but when it comes to the money thing, that's one thing that pisses me off. That's why I don't get in. Here's my tangent, but that's why I don't get into college sports, because when there's somebody at the end who's saying the money doesn't matter, but they're the ones making all the money
and punishing someone for charging $10 for an autograph,
dude.
Yeah, fuck that.
that pisses me off.
Yeah,
because it's always the person who says it's not about the money. That's usually the person who's making all the money in that racket. You know what I mean?
But to go back to the prisons and the private military real quick, this is I'm anti redistribution of wealth, and a lot of times when people hear that, they think that just means I don't believe in welfare or financial assistance or anything like that, and that's part of it. But the other part of it is stuff like privatized.
No welfare at all. So what happens, dude?
Okay, that's a whole other tangent.
Okay, sorry.
But the other part of being Jesus Christ.
Redistribution.
Thank you. Being anti that, I had a little stroke there, I guess. Being anti that also means things like with the private prison where they essentially have slave labor. That's being funded through government money that is taxed from people in the middle class.
Right.
It's redistributing middle class money into wealthy pockets. Yeah. And it's the same with the war machine. Like, it's
49 to 51% of profits made in this country go in the 1%'s pocket. Yeah. And that helps to concentrate wealth towards the top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I'm not an eat the rich guy. I'm not into class warfare or anything like that. But the way that our system in this country works right now, it's not a level everyone's treated equally under the law playing field. Gigantic corporations, I don't have a problem with in theory, but once they start getting into bed with the government, and now the government is changing the rules to make sure that nobody can challenge them, fuck that, Yeah,
this whole, I was just talking to somebody about that, like with the Disney thing, and somebody was like, "Oh, ain't it cool? Disney owns this." I'm like, that's not cool.
No, it's terrible.
That's not cool. No. They own ESPN. I don't even watch wrestling, but they own that. Yeah. And then like we own Star Wars and Marvel. That's not a good thing. And at a certain point with me, I'm like, I know this is rhetorical and whatever, but why would you want that much power? You're Mickey fucking Mouse. Like, you all are iconic. Like, don't you want a Pepsi to your Coke? You really just want it to be all Coke, dude. Like, that's weird to me.
100%.
And it's like a red flag, man.
Everybody always says Walmart when they bring up the giant corporation thing. Disney is way fucking shadier than Walmart.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Like, and there's there's only a handful of companies out there anyway. Like when you get into the big umbrellas.
Yeah, there's like 6 companies that own everything.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah, don't get me started with that shit. So back to killing.
Oh yeah, we were supposed to be talking about guns.
We're supposed to be fighting over these goddamn guns. Not no hippie love fest. Goddamn hippies. So what else can we disagree with guns? So back to my stance. I just think there should be more rules around guns in the sense where I don't think you should be able to stockpile them. I think you should have some type of accountability.
Okay, so let me ask you this: what's the limit on the number of guns you should be able to own?
Here's the theory I came up with in my head.
Okay.
I think the more people you live around, the less guns you should have. I know that sounds retarded.
No, I understand
but
the
in the
intent
sense
behind it.
in the sense to where since you have the potential to harm more people, then say we're here in Cleveland, Ohio, in a nice sunny Lakewood, and it's a lot of apartments around here. So we're in an apartment building right now. I would say for this apartment, I should have maximum 3 guns. But once again, it does go back to your argument of okay, so John has 4th gun. Should John be in cage?
Yeah.
I don't. And this is how it's hard to make rules about stuff because I don't know how to approach that and this is why I don't like of course the drug war shit like that because even though I feel this way with stuff, I don't know how you go about well, fucking Jimmy got 5 guns down the street, so let's go and blah blah blah. So it's very hard to implement this, but I just feel the more people you're around, that you shouldn't have that many guns, and there should be an accountability behind them. Like I said, if maybe an insurance type of thing, maybe a gun lock, maybe the ring thing sounds cool, but I don't even use guns, and it just doesn't seem practical to me.
The what thing?
The whole I got my ring that my gun can only read when I'm wearing this particular.
Oh
ring.
yeah.
So if somebody else has this gun in their hand, you know what I mean. That's
and I think they're also working on fingerprint scanners. And stuff.
That sounds cool, but part of it's kind of creepy, microchippy thingies.
Yeah.
I don't really get into. And then scenarios, blah blah blah's in my house. Hey honey, get the gun. Well, I don't have the then it's stupid.
Yeah.
So and that's the problem around a lot of this stuff is it is hard to tackle because as soon as even me not being the biggest gun person, think of a way to, maybe we could do this. But then it's I just think, too, maybe going back to the original argument, maybe if we equally applied the law, because I'm seeing this through my filter of blackness. Of course.
Yeah.
So maybe if we focused on that part of it, if we didn't see a lot of black people as being inherently violent, and if we didn't just brush off, there was this guy. It was just in the news. This black guy. He had put this. He felt like he was being harassed by this crazy dude, and he had warned the FBI. And then and this guy was known to be crazy, and then they brushed it off, and sure enough, this guy ended up killing him. And he had all these guns. So I don't. If there was just a way for people to be I don't know, heard or caught before. I don't know. It's hard.
That brings up an interesting point that I hadn't thought about bringing up until now. Of the other side of the coin of me not trusting the government is I also don't trust the government to protect me when I need to be protected.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I need to be able to protect myself.
Yeah.
I had somewhere else to go. Every single podcast I record, at some point, I always lose a thought.
Oh, dude, I just did. I tried to. I crash landed that thought quite smoothly. I'm and walking away.
But no, one of the good / lazy things about libertarianism is I don't ever have to worry about talking about actual real world solutions because my ideal world is we're so far away from a libertarian world.
Right.
And what I see as ideal, a billion different things have to change to get there.
Yeah.
So I I almost don't have to engage in okay, well, we're in the real world. What do we do in the real world? And I fully admit that with my argument. My no restrictions on any gun ever, it's not a realistic thing, at least it's not something that will ever be implemented in the near future.
You never know, man. You never know.
I think a billion different things have to change before getting there. And that's kind of a through line through a lot of my thoughts. They're not attainable now. Yeah. So it kind of absolves me of any.
Do you think part of your libertarianness kind of is rooted in some
laziness?
Form of no, some form of like your own utopia? You know what I mean?
I definitely have thoughts of my own utopia.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I think by and large my libertarianism over the years has formed due to stubbornness and rebellion. Yeah. I think that's what it like I don't want you fucking telling me what to do. Yeah, like just leave me alone.
Yeah. And a lot of times the people who are telling you what to do, though, it's like the people who tell you not to smoke pot because it's bad and they've never been high.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, this makes me want to eat cheeseburgers and go to bed.
Yeah.
I was drunk and yelled at my girlfriend, and I can do that all day, but I don't get the munchies. You might get paranoid and drive 5 miles below the speed limit. But it's always those guys who've never experienced that they're telling you why you can't do, and I can see how that can be applied to the gun thing, because there's a lot of us who've never really handled guns, but who are telling people who have what to do. I did tell this one guy, we were having this conversation. It's a guy I worked with, and he was going to be a cop, and we were going back and forth with the gun debate. And I did tell him, I was like, dude, you could be a cop your whole career, and statistically, you probably aren't going to deal with as much gun shit as I dealt with just growing up in the inner city. And I didn't mean to do that in the sense of having a trump card, but he was saying as a gun owner there are certain things that he knows that I don't. And I'm like, I understand that, but as
someone who has been around gun violence.
Right, dude. But I think one of the biggest things I don't like about guns is the fact that, like, the times I've had guns put on me and I've been shot at, like, you go from the coin flips so quick. You go from 0 to 100 so quick that a person, like right now, like if you had a gun, you could take it out and blow my brains out. And I remember that feeling after I got away this one time when this dude put a gun on our head. He laid us down in the fucking somebody's driveway, robbed us, took my boots and shit, gun to the back of my head. And like you're thinking you're about to die, and you're like, "Fuck, this sucks, man." You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And but then they run away, and then like you get away with your life, and you live to fight another day. But I just hate the fact that anybody could like just end you that quickly. Yeah. And that really fucked with me. And
it's a mind fuck for sure.
Yeah. And once again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that now since John got scared that everyone shouldn't have a gun. Yeah. I'm not saying that. And because to my friend I grew up with, who was with me, getting robbed. That's why he carries his gun all the time.
I was gonna say
it makes different reactions in people.
It's interesting because I have been shot at in my life too. When I want to say 9 or 10 years old, my stepdad got drunk and shot at me and my sister.
Dude, that's horrible, dude.
Oh yeah, fucking terrible. But it's so interesting to what you were just saying.
At least the dude, I didn't know him. You knew this.
Yeah. But it's so interesting how that shit. If that happens to one person, they go one way, another person goes another. Like, we've both been around gunfire in our lives, and it's...
Well, you know what? I remember my mother told me this story. She's the oldest of 9, from Alabama, moved up to Cleveland, born in the 50s, so let's get the fuck out of Alabama and all this other shit. But I remember she's like my only aunt that didn't smoke, and my mother barely drinks. Like in the last few years, she just started kind of drinking at Christmas and stuff like that. Yeah. She'll have a glass of wine here and there, but she never got in that. But everybody else in my family like fucking smoke, drink, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to her one day, and I was like, how come you didn't smoke? And she was like, because everybody did. And it was irritating to me. Like I didn't like the smell, and I didn't like being around it. So when I didn't have to be around it anymore, I never wanted to be around it or pick that up. And then on the opposite side of that coin, I have an aunt. We call her Poochie. And I was like, hey, Poochie, how come you do smoke? And she was like, well, I used to have to light my mother's cigarettes on the stove. And then after a while, you would light it for... And this is super back in the day because I don't think this happens as much now.
Yeah.
But she would say, you're a kid and you go to light this person's cigarette and then you take a puff here, you take a puff there, and then you gravitate towards it. So back to the gun thing, I think what irritates one person... like, oh, I don't want to be around that. Intrigues another person.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, what's this all
yeah,
about?
That really is in any kind of subculture, and I
Yeah.
think that you could call gun culture a subculture.
Yeah.
In any kind of culture, being brought up in it really can instill either a rebellion to it, I'm going the opposite way of this, or I'm steering into it kind of thing. Yeah.
So I guess back to what I just said. I guess my biggest thing of it, opposition to guns, is the absolute of it.
Okay. Yeah.
The absoluteness of it. The being able to just anybody being able to take a life, and goes back to my original point of that's why I think it should be like having a pilot's license. In theory, anybody can.
Yeah.
I don't think that they should, hey, you shouldn't go to this school. Hey, everybody go to that pilot school, but let's all take these tests. And when it's all well said and done, fucking grandma with the glasses, you ain't flying the plane.
But to me, I don't trust the
school.
I don't trust the government to be able to effectively say who is and isn't qualified.
Right. I get that part.
Yeah.
I get that part of it. But it's so like the nuclear weapon, and it's in a sense to where like we both can do this, but here we are.
Yeah.
But here it still is. So what do you do?
Yeah.
So what do you do? So I think like going forward, one of the few things you can do is maybe have these type of discussions. Maybe because I want to say this as a lefty. I'm in a lot of lefty circles. We talk about a lot of crazy lefty shit.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever once came across somebody who's for gun confiscation. And I think a lot of people on the pro-gun side hear that. Because I hear that argument a lot. Like, you're not taking my guns, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying that person's not out there, but as super lefty dude who heard a lot of lefty shit, it's not as pervasive.
I will say, I think that is something that is more common amongst politicians than it is amongst
But even
people.
politicians, what politician has said this? You know what I mean? I don't. But because
Barack Obama praised Australia's gun confiscation.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton has. Dianne Feinstein has.
But they pay lip service in it to the. And this is me kind of defending them, but shitting on them too. Because once again, I'm a lefty. I'm a liberal.
Yeah.
But this is why a lot of us liberals don't like Democrats, because they're spineless. Like they don't speak up, and when they do speak up, it's in these half platitudes to where it was like when Barack Obama was talking about, well, the single-payer system would be the best, but that will take too much, so we're just going to do this adopted Massachusetts thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of was their pivot on the guns. Like, well, we could do these rules or this, or I think what they did was good, but he effectively didn't do anything about guns. I think he thought he was paying lip service to us lefties, and it just made him look stupid in the end. You know what I mean?
I will say, and I don't want to paint this as just a left-wing politician thing. I think that there are plenty of politicians but I think that there are plenty of politicians on the right that would be okay with gun confiscation.
I don't think so.
I 100% do.
I don't think so.
No. And I'm telling you this.
Dude,
okay, hold on. I don't know names. I'm saying the ones that are in power because they want power.
Oh, yeah.
Not all of them will say it, but anybody that's in power that wants power would be 100% fine with gun confiscation.
Yeah.
Whether they say that or not is a different thing. But back to my original point, and I think that this is something that happens with a lot of different topics, is you have the boogeyman of what the opposition to your idea is.
Right.
That boogeyman very rarely exists.
Yeah.
So even people that believe in gun control, as you were just saying, you run in lefty circles, and none of you are talking about gun confiscation.
Never, dude. And if somebody brought it up, you'd probably get laughed at.
The reason that I have gun confiscation in my mind is I'm always fucking watching what the government's doing to make sure, just to make sure.
Dan is watching you, Washington. He is right behind you. No,
because I mean, it's even if the citizenry of people that line up on the left aren't talking about gun confiscation, the more rules you put in place, the closer you get to gun confiscation. Yeah, which is it. Again, I don't think that in and of itself is an entirely solid argument, the slippery slope argument. But at the same time, if you look back through history, every tyrannical government started off with disarming its citizens. Nazi Germany, China, Russia, even America did it at the massacre at Wounded Knee. Before that, the day before that happened, they went in and took all of the weapons from the Lakota Sioux, I think it was.
Well. Once again, this is me getting all black on the podcast. Like back then, dude, like nobody except certain landowning white guys could own guns.
Yeah.
So it was already in a limited capacity.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
But see, my answer to that is not
make it more limited, to make it more abundant.
Give everybody the right. Yeah.
I get it. I get that. I don't know. I don't know. Like we were just saying, if people could be real about because that's the thing. Back to the Facebook thing that started all this. This was so immediately you hear an opposite point, and then you think about all these people, and then you think about when I say you, I mean me. When you think about like Trump people, and then like George Bush people, and then I see like white guys in militia outfits in Michigan running around, and then I see some white kid who shot up a school. I'm not super trying to make this racial. I'm just whatever. And then I see all these people shooting up these schools and this, that, and the other, and I'm just like, dude, like you can't see that something needs to be done, but then we're having this back and forth. And a lot of when you're on the Facebook, all of that on the outside gets concentrated into what I'm trying to convey to you at that time, to where a lot of the nuance gets lost. And then, okay, when we're able to sit down here face to face, and okay, let's chip off the crazy, Republican this or the school shooter this, and let's just talk to a reasonable gun owner here, and like. So my biggest argument with you would be I really don't the whole numbers thing of it. I'm like and then like I just don't.
I fully admit statistics don't matter to an individual. So like seriously, if somebody came in here and shot me in the face, I wouldn't give a shit that you only have a 0.01% chance of getting shot, because I just got fucking shot.
Yeah, dude, I did not care and not in a bad way, but I didn't care about how rare autism was till my son got autism, and I was like,
yeah,
that sucked. Nobody cares about shit
until it affects them.
Yeah.
And you actually see this in the comedy world a lot. Whenever anybody gets offended by a joke,
Dave Chappelle
it's because
said
it's
that. Everything is happy until it.
Yep.
Everything's funny until it happens to you.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's so. That is to be human. You know what I mean? Is we don't feel anything until it's in our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And then even some of the stuff that I'm filtering through, like my blackness, and I'm trying to get the rest of the world to see it. But then, as a person who is black, you still, right or wrong, like I said, I had to come to a level of understanding that certain people who live out in rural areas, like if you call 911, you have to realize like.
It could take 20 minutes for them to get to you sometimes.
At best.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, I would definitely want a fucking gun if I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Or I was even thinking just being a homeowner, because I was thinking about buying a house in Cleveland just because I'm poor and the houses in Cleveland are cheap. but being in an area that's probably not I don't want to buy a house in the hood, but you know what I mean. There's break-ins in certain areas.
Yeah.
So I would want to own a gun, but then I was thinking about with my daughters and my son, and that's when I started thinking about going to the range, because if I have this thing, I better know how to use it.
Well, that's something that I do want to bring up is there's, regardless of the laws and regulations and whatever, the culture surrounding guns, I am staunch in thinking that anybody that owns a gun needs to 100% intimately know how that gun functions, know how to be safe with that gun. People that are
well, here's the conundrum really quick.
Okay.
But should there be a law saying that you have to know how to?
This is the thing. I'm not.
That's the rub.
Yeah, but I'm not into forcing.
Right.
I'm into encouraging. I'll call you an idiot if you're being reckless with a gun. But at the end of the day, I don't believe in the force aspect of it.
Right. And then,
but one thing that you brought up a couple of minutes ago that I wanted to touch on when we were talking about just violence and everything, I really think when it comes down to it, in our country, our violence problem is not it's a cultural problem, a problem with our culture. And that's not to make myself sound so grandiose or whatever.
No,
that's one of the reasons that I want to do this podcast is I think that if people would just fucking talk to each other, be civil with each other, we could solve a lot of this shit. Yeah. It won't solve everything, but I think that has a lot to do with it.
I completely agree because it's this humanity as a whole, but what's going on in this experiment in America, like, dude, we have a fucking cancer, dude. Mm-hmm. And it's so much shit that you can't pin your finger on one particular thing that's like the moral rot of America. There's a million things, and on top of that, there's no there. There's a human experience. There'll always be struggle and stuff, but from the things you see with statistics, quality of life, and how happy we are, and just things like that, mortality rates, the struggle's real, dude. And I think then once people are going through that, you throw in the drugs, you throw in the depression, you throw in the guns, and then the problems arise. So like you're saying, maybe if we could get to the root of that, we wouldn't be consuming a lot of these drugs. There wouldn't be this depression, and there wouldn't even be
because the violent tendency doesn't come from the gun. The gun gives a tool to the violent tendency. And I think that we would be better served by focusing on figuring out where the violent tendencies come from.
Well,
and it's a very multifaceted problem.
Let me ask you this: as a libertarian, I've always thought about experimental, either neighborhoods or cities. How would you feel about that? An experimental, just to see how it would pan out. Like in this city or this part of the city, USA. There are no guns. Now I know in theory, with your whole thing, there's the law thing, but just here's I think that's I
love it.
Let's see how that plays out.
I absolutely love it, and it doesn't conflict with my libertarianism at all because presumably everybody that would be part of that city would be voluntarily saying, I'm opting into this and choosing not to have a gun.
Because I do realize there's a very, the natives versus the colonizers coming in. You can play that piece shit all you want to till somebody with a gun shows up.
Right.
And like the Chris Rock thing.
But
everybody else, they know you ain't got one. So I do get that, but it would be interesting to see how we as a society, how things would play out. But
I would love to do that with a lot of different things. Experiments of let's have this community and see how things play out if we have it run this way or this way.
Yeah, but then once again, you get into stuff about who's going to do this, who's going to plan these things, how.
And also, the federal government isn't going to allow too much experimentation because they need to have their fucking hands in it.
Yeah, you guys are our experiment right
now.
We're seeing what happens when we poison all your food, when we take all your money. We pit you all against each other, and we go running away while we watch you all fight and blame each other for it. That's the experiment.
Yeah.
Look at them fight though, bro.
Try to do anything good, and they'll turn you into a Waco or a Ruby Ridge. Not that Waco or Ruby Ridge were doing good things, but that's what the government would come in and do.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this is the second episode of this show, and this is the second time in as many episodes that I sat down with someone that I thought that I was going to disagree with a lot more than I actually did. Obviously, we have issues in parts that we disagree on.
Oh yeah,
but I think,
I said, the absoluteness of it is one of the things that gets me and stuff like that. But I think there's a meeting of the minds where people can concede certain stuff. But to be fair too, I think part of the reasons you had me on here is I am a very agree to disagree person.
Sure, yeah.
Like you said, like I'm not dying on a certain hill. Like,
Yeah.
Like I don't like. Okay. All right. I'm not.
Yeah.
And certain stuff I will concede to, like with the AR-15 thing. Like, dude, I don't know what any of these guns are. I don't. And then like when people talk about automatic versus semi-automatic and stuff like that, I think in a way people on my side, you do get lost in the semantics of that. You know what I mean? Because it's like, okay, well, all right.
I don't want to assume too much, but I do think that a lot of people on the anti-gun side, and this just kind of makes sense. If you're anti-gun, you're not going to have had a whole lot of experience using guns. Yeah. I think there is a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding of a lot of things surrounding guns on the anti-gun side. The fully automatic versus semi-automatic is the biggest thing that comes to my mind. But again, I don't blame people for having those misunderstandings, and it really is fun for me to find out. This is exactly why I am doing this podcast, why I am doing this experiment, because I'm seeing even people that I disagree with, I agree with more than I thought that I would.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you.
So everybody out there, fucking talk to your neighbors, man.
It's being in the car versus being in the elevator.
Yes.
When Facebook, you're in the car. You're yelling at people. Fuck you, bitch.
Yes.
When you're in the elevator, you're like, hi, this is a nice day we're having
Talk
here.
to each other like you're in the elevator, America.
Yeah, man. It's a lot of that shit. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but what we were alluding to a few minutes ago about maybe once the temperature comes down, you wouldn't deal with it just wouldn't be a thing. And the other thing too of the whole streaker at the game, if we don't martyr these people, like I think that'll bring the temperature of that part down too. And then the rest of it probably just it's going to be statistics of, like, you know, stepping on rakes or getting bit by rattlesnakes. It's just like, unfortunately, there's going to be a little bit of but some stuff you can't necessarily legislate that end of it. But if you can bring it down significantly and the racial aspect and level it out to where, like, you don't have certain people being strictly held under this and other people not being held as accountable, or even with this was a racial / sex thing. I don't know if you heard about this. There was a lady, she had a gun. I think it was either her ex-boyfriend or somebody or just an intruder, period. But the guy was breaking in her house. She fired a warning shot in the air, and they arrested her. And she's doing like
I did
time,
see that. Yes,
dude,
I did see that.
because it was versus the stand your ground thing.
Yeah,
So it's like Zimmerman who kills Trayvon, and that's a big thing. And then they're like, stand your ground. But then this lady, she fires a warning shot.
Yeah, she didn't even shoot the guy.
So I think a lot of people on my side of the argument would be appeased more, I guess. Not that we want to be appeased, but at least you'll take steps towards the middle more if you saw an equal application of the law like that.
And you know what?
She should have been able to shoot him.
Absolutely, she should have been able to shoot and kill him.
Let alone shoot
100%.
your ceiling, and they're like,
100%. Yeah. And so that is actually one of the last things that I want to say to anybody out there listening. On the racial level, blacks and whites, come together on your hatred of the government. Understand that you both have valid reason and accept each other's reasons and come together and hate the government together.
That's a good note. Yeah. Well, here's my thing. Okay, not to get too off on it. And like I said, we hate the government for different reasons. Yeah. But I have brought this up to my girlfriend. I was like, I think where a lot of right wing, left wing with the government comes from is like us as black people, we didn't have rights for a long time. Mm-hmm. So when we got rights, we got
Which, by the way, that's one of the reasons I hate the government.
No,
but yeah, go ahead.
No, for sure. But I think one of the reasons we tend to be government in certain ways is because the way that we got rights was through the government. You had to pass certain laws. You had to, like, whether it was, Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil Rights Law.
My counter to that is the only reason that had to be handled legislatively was because the legislation was in place to begin with to oppress you.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. But I'm just saying that to say that I think that's why we kind of lean on the legislative part of government, like, because we have seen it affect change in a way that became positive for us.
Sure.
And then on the other side of that, I think that's why a lot of right-wing people don't like the government, because they were the ones who came in and said, all right, we got to bus these kids to your side of town. Okay, you can't do this, or you now you have to have, this woman has to be able to work here, or this black person can live here, or this. And now, and morally speaking, yes, you should be able to do that. And I'm not in any way sticking up for, like, you know, Southern white racist people. But at the same time, just objectively looking at it from a human standpoint, that's why I think a lot of them look at government the way they do, because the only time that they had to deal with it is when they were telling them, like, hey, you have to change your lifestyle because we're all of a sudden going to accommodate these other people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I think that's why there's a negative connotation on that side when it comes to government.
But the thing is, I think that there's merit to both of those sides.
Yeah.
In that, I think that it took government overreach in the fact that the government was stopping black people from voting, from owning property, from et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It took that government overreach and then swung to government overreach on the other side. Yeah. And that's why I land in the happy medium of get the government out of all of it.
well, where is their place? Where's the government's place?
This is a tricky thing for me, and something that I kind of struggle with a lot is I think that there has to be a system in place to handle protecting people that are unable to protect themselves, and that it comes into like prisons and stuff like that, and to defend our country from any threat coming in from outside.
And just the infrastructure, and how do we get power?
Infrastructure, I don't think the government needs to be involved at all.
Really?
Yeah. Nope. Roads and shit, no. Also, I think that, furthermore, I think that the government taking care of roads is
probably
subsidizing big business.
Whoa,
businesses should be building roads to their own business. That's what I think.
That is very true. That's one of the reasons why our military is so bloated, because a big part of it is just it's a giant welfare jobs program.
Oh, 100%.
Like they have so many people in the government who are even saying, like, we don't even need all these tanks anymore. And then that what was it, that new F whatever fighter that we spent damn near $1 trillion on, that, like, what fucking dogfights are we getting into in this day and age?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think airplanes are cool. You
sure.
know what I'm saying? I think they're cool, but at the same time, it's like,
and private companies should spend their own money on making really cool airplanes.
Yeah. That's why I love, like, what Elon Musk did with SpaceX.
Yes, 100%.
Did you read, like, anything about that, as far as, like, when he started cracking and getting into that of how they do everything with SpaceX, he realized how antiquated a lot of shit NASA was doing, and basically that was another jobs program to where they were just shuffling around a certain amount of money and not really putting a lot of money into R&D and certain aspects of things, and how it was only us and the Russians who had certain technology, and we were using a lot of Russian technology for shit that was just really old. And he was like, well, this is a waste of money, and this is a waste of money, and how come we're not pushing this type of technology? And when you have to do it with your own money, you're forced to do it better and more efficiently. Yeah. They say that's why German bikes and cars became so efficient after World War II, because they couldn't put any money into the war machine anymore because it was illegal, and that on top of the fact of scarcity with materials, so the bikes that they made became
had to be really efficient.
Yeah. And it's amazing that through that, then you got your BMWs and your Mercedes, and these really good
Volkswagens.
These really good Japanese bikes. I didn't even know that till I was listening to that on a podcast a couple weeks ago. But it's like, through that scarcity and everything else, and then conversely on our side of it, when we had more of the spoils of war, here come our big fat 50s and 60s pimped out cars that were just, not
to get 0.2 miles to the gallon.
But it's cool. Are we wrapping?
I think we're gonna wrap up. Is there anything else that you want to say about the topic of guns?
I I don't know.
I think this was a great conversation, man.
I think we hit a lot of good topics. And once we round them all up, this will be a better world for the. Once we get every last goddamn gun off the street, I don't want to see a slingshot.
And I say nuclear bombs in every home. Every citizen should have a nuclear bomb.
David, put that slingshot down. Goliath, kick him in the dick. No, man, no. This was awesome. It was like, and it's really telling of how I'm really go like listening to these because I want to hear how these debates go. Like as you go through all these like third world topics and like see how people really address them. So far,
I'm 2 for 2.
Well, I don't know, man. Like, basketball's no fun without the defense, so you might have to get somebody a little more rigid, man.
I do. If somebody more rigid wants to talk to me about guns, I invite you to do so.
Well, I guess though, per your rules though, in a civil manner, like it can't
look, dude,
I'm
I'm pretty dumbass. I'm pretty rigid in my belief, and I feel like I'm able to stay civil with it. So I feel like there's people out there on the other side that are just as rigid that could do it. And again, I invite them to come on and listen if they're out there listening. And John didn't cover your anti-gun side as well as you would have liked.
Sorry, other lefties. I'm a little scatterbrained, so I'm probably gonna listen to this. I'm like, God damn it, why didn't I say the thing with the thing and the thing?
I guarantee when I'm editing this and listening back, I'm gonna have that because with the first episode, I was editing it. And I'm like, there's so much shit that I should have said and didn't say.
Yeah. I don't know. Summation. I think there should be gun regulation. I think the gun deaths in this country are a problem. I think there are way too many guns. I don't like the way anybody could just kill you, and I don't like the opposition to rules around that. But once again, starting at that, I don't like the opposition to that. I think that's when the fighting comes. Mm-hmm. Because like on your side, you don't like the like what the why are you fucking with my shit? Because some dipshit shot some things. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, baby, why I gotta wear a condom? I ain't got nothing. Okay.
Holy shit, that's a really good way to put it.
Last question.
Okay.
What's your stance on condoms? Does Dan the Libertarian? Do you wear prophylactics?
Fuck no. Fuck no. Have you ever fucked with a condom? That sucks.
Yeah, dude, I got 3 kids. Of course not.
And I have 3 infections. Do you want to promote like social media or anything or any dates you got coming up? This is going to be released on Monday, so.
Oh, fucking A. I'll be at the Cleveland Improv at what's it, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Starting the 16th, I'll be emceeing. Apparently, I think the headliner is Don D.C. Curry. So, yeah,
nice.
Check that out. That'll be something fun. I took Instagram and Facebook off my phone, but being the social media crack addict I am, I'm sure I'll be back on it. But you can find me on Instagram at John Armstrong Comedy and on Facebook at John Armstrong. And that's it. I ain't really got nothing to promote. Just be happy and spring, hurry up and get here because it's cold.
And all of you out there, you should definitely check out John's comedy. He is, like I said, one of my favorite comedians in the area. So
I try.
Funny guy. John, thank you for coming on.
Thank you,
We
Dan.
may disagree, but I still like you.
All right, let's shake, even though they can't see it. Can you hear our hands, America? They're touching.
You're supposed to say, I still like you.
Oh, I still like you, man.
I still like you, too. Thanks for coming on, man.